She said her sister told her to stay home and rest before she even mentioned feeling sick. How do you anticipate someone like that unless you already know what's coming?
I remember it was a quiet Tuesday morning, and I was sitting at my kitchen table, letting my tea go cold while scrolling through my phone like I always did. My name's Valery Lockwood. I live alone about 20 minutes from my parents, and usually by that time of day, I've already heard from my sister Marin at least once. She's the kind of person who checks in, or used to. That morning, though, there was nothing. No message, no missed call, just a text from the night before that felt oddly specific. You should stay home tomorrow. Just rest. At the time, I didn't think much of it, except I hadn't told her I wasn't feeling well yet. Then I coughed lightly into a napkin. And when I looked down, there was a faint streak of red. I stared at it longer than I should have, trying to decide what didn't make sense, first the blood, or the fact that Marin somehow seemed to expect it. I folded the napkin in half and set it beside my mug like it was something I could deal with later. The kitchen felt unusually quiet, even for my place. Normally, I had something playing in the background, music, a podcast, anything, but that morning I hadn't turned anything on. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the faint ticking of the clock above the stove, and my own breathing, just a little heavier than usual. I picked up my phone again and opened my messages with Marin. Her last few texts all looked the same when I really paid attention, short, direct, almost controlled. Did you eat? Make sure you rest. Don't overdo it today. At the time, I'd taken it as concern. That was her role in the family, organized, practical, always one step ahead of everyone else. Even my parents relied on her for things, like she had a better read on situations than the rest of us. I tapped on her name, hesitated, then typed, "Hey, quick question. Have you been feeling sick at all lately?" I watched the typing bubble appear almost immediately, then disappear. No reply. That was strange. Marin didn't start typing unless she already knew what she was going to say. I leaned back in my chair, suddenly aware of how tired I felt. Not just sleepy heavy, like my arms didn't quite belong to me. I tried to ignore it, stood up, and rinsed my mug in the sink. My hands trembled slightly under the running water, enough that I had to steady the cup with both hands. "Okay," I muttered to myself, barely above a whisper. "You're just run down." That explanation had been working for a while now. Every time something felt off, headaches, nausea, that strange dizziness when I stood up too fast, I'd tell myself the same thing. Stress, bad sleep, too much caffeine, not enough food. Except that didn't explain the blood. I reached for the counter to steady myself as a brief wave of nausea passed through me. It faded quickly, leaving behind that same dull heaviness. I glanced toward the small stack of meal containers near the fridge, the ones Marin had dropped off a few days ago. She'd insisted, actually. "You're not taking care of yourself properly," she'd said, already unpacking the bags before I could argue. "This will make things easier." At the time, it had felt helpful, thoughtful, even. Now, standing there with my hands still braced against the counter, I realized something that didn't quite sit right. Marin hadn't asked if I needed help. She decided I did. And for some reason, she'd made sure I didn't leave the apartment the next day. It wasn't just that morning that felt off. It was how consistent everything had been leading up to it. Marin had always been the reliable one. That's what everyone said. If there was ever a disagreement in the family, it usually ended with, "Let's just ask Marin." And whatever she said after that stuck. Not because she was loud or forceful, she wasn't, but because she sounded certain, like she'd already thought it through. I used to find that reassuring. Lately, though, I started noticing how often she answered for me. A few weeks earlier, during a call with our parents, I mentioned I'd been feeling tired. Before I could explain, Marin cut in smoothly. "She's just overworking herself again." There was no pause, no follow-up question. My parents just accepted it. That same pattern kept repeating. Headaches, stress, nausea, bad eating habits, dizziness, anxiety. It was always something that made it sound like the problem was me. I pulled my phone closer again, scrolling back further through our messages. The tone didn't change much, but the timing did. Every time I'd felt worse, she'd already texted me earlier that day. Short instructions, calm reminders. And then I saw another message from 2 days ago I hadn't paid attention to before. Try to stick to the meals I brought you. Don't order anything else for a bit. I frowned at the screen. If she thought I was just stressed, why was she so specific about what I should and shouldn't eat? By the time I pushed myself up from the counter, the question wasn't going away. I tried to ignore it at first, grabbed my keys, told myself I just needed fresh air, maybe a quick walk to clear my head. But the second I stood fully upright, the room tilted just enough to make me stop. My hand shot out to the wall, steadying myself. Okay. No, I muttered. This isn't normal. Another wave of nausea hit, sharper this time. I barely made it to the sink before coughing again harder, and when I looked down, there was more blood. Not a streak this time. Enough that I couldn't pretend it was irritation or something minor. My chest tightened, not just from the coughing, but from the realization that I couldn't stay here. I grabbed my phone and typed out a message to Marin. I think something's really wrong. I'm going to the ER. The reply came almost instantly. You don't need to do that. I stared at the screen, waiting for more, an explanation, concern, anything, but that was it. No. Are you okay? No. Do you want me to come? Just resistance. I swallowed, my throat dry, and glanced over at the row of containers on the counter. Same labels, same handwriting. Every meal I'd had the past few days, hers. Another message came through. Just stay home. You'll be fine.
She's throwing up blood and says she's going to the ER. Why is the response just stay home? Couldn't there be at least some urgency here?
That's when it stopped feeling like advice and started feeling like a warning. By the time I stepped outside, the air felt colder than it should have. Not freezing, just sharp enough to make me aware of how unsteady I was. I locked the door behind me, stood there for a second, and realized no one knew I was leaving except the one person who told me not to. The drive to the ER was only 10 minutes, but it stretched. Every red light felt longer. Every movement, turning the wheel, pressing the brake, took more focus than it should have. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and my phone stayed silent. No follow-up from Marin, no call from my parents, nothing to ask if I'd made it safely. It was like the moment I said I was getting help, I stopped existing to them. When I finally walked into the ER, everything shifted. The front desk nurse looked up once, took in my face, and immediately stood. Hey, come with me. No hesitation, no questioning whether I was overreacting. Within minutes, I was in a bed. A blood pressure cuff tightening around my arm, someone asking me rapid, focused questions. What symptoms? How long? Any recent changes? I answered automatically until one question slowed me down. Have you changed your diet recently? I hesitated, then nodded. My sister's been bringing me food. The nurse paused, just briefly, before writing something down. That pause was small, but it was the first time someone reacted like that detail actually mattered. The doctor didn't come in right away. Time stretched in that room, monitors humming softly, footsteps passing in the hallway, the quiet efficiency of people who already seemed to understand something I didn't yet. Blood had been taken, questions asked, vitals checked twice. When the doctor finally walked in, he didn't rush. He looked at the chart first, then at me, really looked this time, like he was trying to line something up in his head. Valery, he said calmly, how long has this been going on? A few weeks? Maybe longer? I answered. My voice sounded smaller than I expected. He nodded once, then asked, why did you wait? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out right away because the answer didn't feel simple anymore. I thought about the calls, the texts, the steady reassurance that nothing was wrong, that I was overreacting. I was told I was fine, I said finally. There was a brief silence. Then he asked the question that didn't fit, at least not at first. Who told you you were safe? I frowned slightly, confusion mixing with something colder. My family, I said. He held my gaze for a moment longer than comfortable, then exhaled quietly and pulled a stool closer. Your labs came back, he said. There are toxins in your system, not something you'd pick up accidentally, and not something that shows up all at once. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? I asked, even though part of me already understood. It means, he said carefully, this has been happening over time. Repeated exposure. The room felt smaller. My thoughts moved fast, now too fast. The meals, the containers, the instructions. Don't order anything else. You said your sister's been bringing you food? He asked. I nodded slowly. That was enough. The hospital reported it immediately. Everything moved quickly after that, faster than anything had before. Tests on the remaining food. A review of messages. A pattern that, once seen, couldn't be unseen. Marin didn't deny it at first. Not when they showed her the evidence. Not when the timeline lined up perfectly with every symptom I'd tried to explain. Control, that's what it came down to. Quiet, calculated control. She'd shaped how everyone saw me, step by step, until even I started questioning myself. My parents, they didn't know what to say when it came out, because every time they dismissed me, every time they repeated her words, they thought they were being reasonable. I stayed in the hospital for days, long enough to stabilize, long enough to understand that I hadn't been imagining anything. Recovery didn't happen all at once. Some of the damage didn't fully go away, but I left with something I didn't have before: clarity. I live alone still. Same apartment, same kitchen. The difference is, now when I sit at that table, the food in front of me is something I made myself. And my phone, it stays quiet, because the most dangerous part of all of it was how easy it was to trust the one person everyone else already believed.
It's strange how easily concern can sound like control when we don't question it. How often do we trust someone's certainty without noticing what it quietly keeps us from doing?